There is only one catalyst that can take Tesla stock up, and I'm talking about up in the 300s, 350s, 400, and it's a fundamental macro environment change. If we don't get this, I'm afraid we're going to be in the 200s for a very long time, fundamentally, not based on hype or anything. This one catalyst is something that I've been talking about a lot on this channel, and it looks like we're going to be getting this catalyst sooner than later. I'm talking about interest rate cuts. Interest rate cuts are the number one thing that's keeping Tesla stock down, and in this video, I'm going to go over why and why it's bullish once we get a reversal, meaning that when interest rates do go down. So smash that like button, hit subscribe if you haven't already, and let's get down to it. So if you guys remember back in 2021, when interest rates were pretty much at 0%, everything was mooning. Tesla was at an all-time high. The prices was ridiculous for a car. I think to get a Model 3, it was like $60,000, $70,000. It was a lot of money. It was crazy. And that was even after the incentive. So that was when interest rates were at zero. But then once interest rates started to go up, Tesla stock crashed the hardest. In fact, they went from like as high as $414 per share all the way down to $100 in the span of 2 years. Like the thing went down 75, 80%, which is just insane for a stock like Tesla. For a mega cap like Tesla, if you look at across the board, if you look at Nvidia, Amazon, Apple, none of these guys had these crashes, but Tesla did. And that was because they were heavily impacted by the interest rate cuts. Now, why, not cuts, interest rise, because it went up big time, like the fastest in history. Now, why did Tesla crash the hardest? Because consumers, they couldn't make monthly payments for new vehicles. They couldn't, because interest rates suddenly went from 0% to 5%. The monthly finance or leasing on that vehicle went from like $800 to like doubling that, tripling that. It was insane. So everybody was holding off on buying cars. To combat this, Tesla started to reduce their prices, and big time. I believe they brought down prices about 50%. And they still have industry-leading margins, which is absolutely insane, but they brought down their prices by about 50%, meaning their EPS dropped crazy, and that's what brought the stock price down. And the reason why they had to bring down the prices is so they can match, Tesla can match the same monthly payments as it was when interest rates were at 0%. So imagine that, interest rates at 5%. The monthly payment of when it was 0%, Tesla was trying to match that when bringing down prices, which is just mad. Any other car company that wants to bring down prices like this, they're finished. They are bankrupt. But Tesla still had leading margins in the industry, which is just mind-boggling. But that's why the stock crashed, because EPS crashed. Their earnings went down. Even though the revenue kept going up, their earnings continued to go down and down and down. And of course, you had other factors as well, Elon buying Twitter and, other drama going around. But the 80% of this is this interest rate. I would even say 90% of this. The other stuff is just stupid noise that doesn't really matter. But this was the main thing. Now, here's the thing. Now interest rates are set to go down. There's a high chance that the Fed will cut rates by 50 basis points, like 0.50%. And US Democrats like Elizabeth Warner is urging the Fed to cut the rate by 0.75%, which is just, if this happens, guys, we're going to have an awesome boost in the equities market, and that would include Tesla. That Tesla will probably roar the hardest. And I've said this before on this channel and on my X. If you guys haven't followed me on X, I don't know what you guys are doing. You guys should definitely follow me there. Tesla crashed the hardest when interest rate went up. They will roar the hardest when interest rates go down. I'm saying this and I'm sticking by it. That's exactly what's going to happen. I have a price target of 350 by end of this year. What are the chances of that? I have no idea. 300 looks more likely, but I'm saying interest rate cuts in Canada. We had 3 interest rate cuts already, and in the US it looks like it's coming pretty darn soon. Now, Pejjy, why would Tesla stock roar the hardest when interest rates do go down? Well, it's the exact opposite of why the stock went down, because of EPS and earnings. Let me explain. Because now consumers, when interest rates do go down, they be able to go out and look for high capital purchases. This will include a home, because interest rates do impact when you want to buy a house, if you want to get a mortgage. Same thing with a vehicle. Obviously, people don't have cash to go buy the home or the car flat out. 90% don't. They get a mortgage or they finance it or they lease it, and that's heavily backed by interest rates. And when interest rates are high, a lot of consumers, they delay getting a new car or a new house or just a new high capital expense. They delay it. They never cancel it. They delay it. Everybody needs a new car eventually. Everyone needs to, upgrade to a new house or something, right? So they always delay it when they only get it when it's feasible for them. When, borrowing money becomes a whole lot cheaper, hence interest rates being lowered. Now, what Tesla's going to do once interest rates go down, automatically demand will come back naturally because now, hey, monthly payments are now cheaper. We can get a loan, we can get financing, we can get leasing, we can do that. Consumers can do that much easier when interest rates were a whole lot higher. So what Tesla's going to face, and I believe this heavily, is they're going to get a wave of high demand. And Tesla will be forced to increase prices to keep supply and demand level. And not only that, guys, remember when interest rates were high, Tesla had to bring down prices to match the monthly payment of leasing and financing to customers, as they were when interest rates were at 0%. Now the opposite is going to happen. Now monthly finance payments and leasing payments are low, and there's going to be a lot of demand. To offset this, Tesla has to increase prices so they can manage supply and demand. It's just how it works, and I do heavily believe that. And once this happens, we're going to see EPS growth. We're going to see earnings grow. We're going to see a lot of Wall Street analysts and investors look at this and say, okay, this is the time that we have to increase our forecast and pricing and growth for Tesla, because now is the time. Now it's the time. Now, I know we're talking about as if Tesla is a car company, but in most Wall Street analysts and most analysts out there, in their eyes, they still see Tesla as a car company, even though energy, their revenue, well, their profits at least, is more, their earnings is more than their car business. They still see as Tesla as a car company at the moment, even though Tesla is not a car company, not at all. But that's where the big money is. That's how the big money sees it. Unless they see other earnings coming from like their full self-driving and their robo-taxis, they're going to be continuing eyeing the biggest chunk of Tesla right now, which is their vehicles. Even though the future of Tesla is all about full self-driving, robo-taxi, and SaaS-like margins. That's why I'm all into Tesla stock, not because of the cars, but the catalyst at the moment is the interest rate cuts. The other catalyst is the robotaxi event coming on 10/10, and when they'll be able to deploy it and how much revenue and profits they're going to be generating. And FSD entering Europe and China, that's also a big catalyst. But unless it doesn't come in the income statement, it's not going to matter for these Wall Street analysts, for the guys with the big money. It's not going to matter. It's only going to matter once they add it to their income statement and they say, yep, we're now growing exponentially. We're now going to be growing, twice next quarter or next year or blah, blah, blah. Kind of like what happened with NVIDIA recently, just this year. So that's what's going on with Tesla. The number one catalyst right now is interest rate cuts. Robotaxi event is coming. Yes, this is hype, and we will get more information on how it's going to be. But for now, for the next 6 months, maybe even 12 months, it's the interest rate cuts. And we are going to get interest rate cuts, and it's going to be flipping awesome. Now, these are all my points. This is how I think. This is what I believe in. And I've been in the stock market for almost more than a decade now, and I do believe this is the case. Once interest rates go down, equity, those companies that got hit the hardest are going to roar the hardest, which is Tesla. I'm going to say this again. Tesla crashed the hardest when interest rates went up, but it's also going to roar the hardest when interest rates go down. Elon Musk dropped some interesting, juicy info here. You guys can check it out. Subscribe. Get your I Bought the Dip t-shirt, man, because I'm going to say it, man. In about 6-12 months, we're going to look back and look at these prices and say, this was the dip. That's all I'm going to say. And I shall see you guys in the next video. See ya.